it was a little different because, I mean, it's the 1600s in France, and King Louis was playing up the whole I am God playing card. So it was like, I can't really say a lot about that. So also at this time, Bertie's sister, Princess Louise, married the Marquess of Lorne. And that was taken kind of badly because he wasn't from a royal house. He was just, second to a duke in the British aristocracy. He's nothing. So, by 1871, Bertie's marriage to Alexandra was also in trouble. She was pregnant with their sixth child when she went into premature labor again. This time, the little boy did not survive.
Oh, no.
Both Bertie and Alex took the death very hard, and to add insult to injury, the doctors warned Bertie to stop having sex with Alexandra.
Oh.
Even though she was only 26 at the time, she, had repeated pregnancies and premature births.
Okay.
And they they worn her out, basically. She'd had 6 pregnancies in 8 years. So, yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And she was also spitting up blood by this time. So it was like, maybe you should, take a break. Bertie, for his part, did care deeply about Alex, and he did not want to endanger her health, so they had a celibate marriage from then on out. But, of course, for someone as sexually rapacious as Bertie, that's the worst news ever. Exactly. So he was pretty quick to rebound, or it's possible that he had already rebound or was engaged in an affair when all this stuff went down. The hard thing about Bertie is that he wasn't even a serial monogamist. He was usually spreading it around among multiple women at the same time, so it's really hard to trace who he was with and when. By 1871, though, he was sitting on 2 sex scandals that had his handlers quite desperate to conceal. He had been embroiled in an affair with Lady Susan Vane Tempest since 1864. So basically, prior to...
Right.
Yeah.
Prior to Alexander's last child.
Right. So, Lady Susan had kind of been his affair du jour.
Okay.
She was the daughter of the Duke of Newcastle and was pretty much, disinherited after she eloped with Lord Adolphus Vane Tempest. The reason that she was disinherited was he was a raging alcoholic. And then turned out that he was also mentally unstable. They were married only for 4 years, and they produced a son together. But Lord Adolphus was physically abusive to both Susan and their son, and at one point tried to kill her. So he was incarcerated after that.
Oh, good.
The baby was born in 1863, and he died in 1864. So that kind of makes me wonder if the baby was really his. Because you would think that he would have been incarcerated well before then.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
But that's just my personal ruminations on the topic.
Okay.
Fortunately for Susan, he did die in 1864 and left her a widow, and that's when she took up with Bertie.
Got it.
They flew under the radar for many years, but in 1871, Susan turned up pregnant and claimed that the baby was Bertie's. She seemed very apologetic about the whole thing. She wrote to Bertie, quote, "I hoped to the last that my efforts might be successful, and that then I need never have told you of the anxiety that I'd gone through." Her efforts referred to the fact that she was responsible for birth control, and that if those failed, then it was her responsibility to get rid of the baby.
Oh.
She visited her own doctor, who, quote, "did everything he could for me as long as it was possible to do so with safety." Apparently his methods didn't work, and Susan was forced to confess her condition to Bertie, but only after she was 5, maybe even 6 months pregnant. Bertie was not a happy camper. According to her letters, he wanted her to visit his doctor to see what could be done. And he even blamed her for not telling him sooner so that something could be done.
Right, because now she's real far along.
Yeah, asshole. Of course, nothing could be done, and Bertie decided to cut his ties with her. So that's some serious asshattery going on right there.
Yeah.
She was ordered via his handlers to take herself off to the country and have the baby in secret. Susan was plainly very attached to Bertie, and her letters to him are very heartbreaking. She begged him to see her before she went away, but he refused.
Even after everything you said to her.
Right. She went to Ramsgate, which was a coastal town that people kind of visited for vacation. She supposedly had the baby there, but the birth was never registered, and the baby was never actually seen.
Really?
Right. So some historians speculate that Bertie's doctor was talked into a late-term abortion, but then some people also believe the baby might have been stillborn. And even then, it could have been that the baby was quietly handed off to a family somewhere.
I was going to say, didn't they usually, they would find a home for the child.
Right, exactly.
Go somewhere and have the baby, and then it's whisked away.
Right. Yeah. Poor Susan was very ill after the birth. She complained of some lady issues that I won't go into, and was bedridden by ulcers on her feet. Given those symptoms, it's quite possible that she had tertiary syphilis, which develops symptoms approximately 5 years after infection. We can assume that she didn't get that from Bertie because he never suffered from syphilis. But 4 years later, Susan Baines Tempest was dead at 36.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's really tragic.
Her baby is the only one that can be certainly traced to Bertie because she put down the particulars in the letters, and those letters were kept by Bertie's personal secretary, Frances Knollys.
Wait, the baby they couldn't locate?
Yeah. But then we know
it was his, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, I understand.
Exactly. So at the same time that this is going on, Bertie is getting blackmailed by the brother of one of his former paramours. He was a great fan of Paris, and so it was no wonder that he found himself being entertained in a palatial mansion on the Champs-Élysées owned by Giulia Bonini, a.k.a. Loverucci, a.k.a. the greatest whore in the world.
That's quite a moniker.
She gave it to herself.
Excellent. Self-awareness.
Right. It seems that Julia not only slept with Bertie, but also his brother Alfred and his brother-in-law Frederick, the Crown Prince of Denmark.
Wow.
So when she died of tuberculosis, her brother got a hold of her effects, which included letters from Bertie and signed photographs from Alfred and the Prince of Denmark. He then proceeded to blackmail Bertie, the future king of England, which always seems like a great idea. Bertie...
What do they think is going to come of that?
I know, right? So, of course, Bertie was not having any of it. He had his secretary handle the situation. And a man posing as an interested buyer for the articles met with the brother. At first, he lowballed him. And when he was refused, he then revealed that the police were outside waiting to arrest the brother. And apparently the brother had no stomach for intrigue, and he quickly crumpled under the pressure. He handed over all the things related to Bertie and his family, and scandal was successfully avoided.
Wow.
Following this time, there were many more women. Many that it could take probably a part 3 to go through all of them. We know that Bertie had a liaison with a courtesan who went by the name of Skittles. No clue on that one. Okay. Her real name was Catherine Walters.
I don't even know what to say about that.
Right. Both Bertie and his brother Alfred laid waste to the actress population of London. He had more long-lasting relationships with one woman in particular. She was named Patsy Cornwallis West, who was 19 at the time. This lasted for approximately a year, and Patsy gave birth to a son who was widely believed to be Bertie's. But if you do the math, the baby was conceived when Bertie was out of the country, so no dice there. Even after they ceased being lovers, Patsy used her influence with Bertie to gain advantageous marriages for her 3 children that she had by her husband.
So she used him.
Right. So brazen
to find good
husbands, yeah.
Husbands.
In 1874, Bertie took the party to Paris again and had liaisons with Madame Standish, who apparently dressed just like Alexandra, his wife, in an attempt to proclaim herself as Bertie's mistress.
Sounds like there's always a party in Paris.
Yeah, exactly. This worked, and the scandal began to leak out. Bertie then moved on to the Princess de Sagan, who became his, quote, date.
Doesn't he get tired of all this?
Apparently not.
Jeez.
I know. She became his date whenever he was in Paris for many years afterwards. He was also a frequent visitor to Le Chabinet, a high-class brothel. He would take champagne baths with the ladies, and even had
That sounds lovely.
I know, right? And he even had a special chair that allowed for him to be serviced by 2 women at one time.
I would like to see said chair.
I think it's in a museum.
I'm very interested in said chair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know which museum, but it said it was in a museum.
Yeah.
So, there's a reason why his nickname became King Key. Put up bush. Yeah. Okay. So Bertie took an extended trip to India from 1875 into 1876, and we can only wonder who he ended up banging while he was there.
Truly.
But Victoria was kind of wise to this, so she tried to intervene by keeping him constantly busy and on the move. So maybe that worked.
She should have thought of that before.
I know, right? I mean, that's the problem. She basically cut him out of the government while he was Prince of Wales. So, I mean, that's all he could do was go and
what
bang
else
women.
was he going to do?
Right, exactly. So while he was in India, a whole new scandal erupted. In 1874, Bertie and Alex had been invited to a house party in Warwickshire. It was sponsored by the Earl of Aylesford and his wife Edith. It was during Bertie's time that the scandalous over-the-top house parties that we kind of associate with England came to fruition.
Okay.
So we're talking champagne flowing 24/7. They're having shooting parties.
Champagne baths? Or just champagne?
Just champagne. You know, they're drinking them. At least all we know. I don't know. Maybe there was some bathing going on there. They're having shooting parties. So they're killing everything that moves. Balls and screwing. Balls. That.
Lots of balls.
Yes, we're drinking whiskey tonight, so you can tell.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So the hostess of these parties would make things easy by placing the names of guests on their doors. So nightly visitations
on the guest rooms,
right?
So they would know which door
to go to, right? And so it was during the Aylesford party that Bertie goes to Lady Edith Aylesford's bedroom one night, but he meets somebody at the door. Turns out that Lord Blandford, who happened to be the heir to the Duke of Marlborough, which was one of the most preeminent titles in the land, was also hanging out with Edith.
Oh. Was he her date or just wanted to get with her too?
We don't know.
Okay.
It might have started before, but because the Prince of Wales outranked him, he said,
"Go ahead.
See you, lady, sir." Sure. So, flash forward to 1876. Lord Aylesford, Lady Edith's husband, is traveling with Bertie in India, and he gets this letter from Edith saying that she's having an affair with Lord Blandford, and should she move out? As you might imagine, Lord Aylesford was kind of pissed. So he sent her a telegram saying for her to get the hell out of the house, and then he sends an email.
Yeah, he did that.
That would be awesome, yes. Right? He sent a telegram.
He tweeted.
He tweeted his mother and told her to take the kids. So this was about to get nasty. Aylesford heads back to England via the First Elephant, and while he's doing this, everyone starts telegraphing Bertie. Alex is all like, convince Aylesford not to leave Edith. And then the couple's good friend Louise, the Duchess of Manchester, wired Bertie and was like, the Countess Aylesford convince Aylesford not to leave Edith. So Bertie's like, that ship has sailed because he's gone. Right. Blandford and Edith, of course, were playing at Romeo and Juliet. Blandford himself was still married, and his wife refused to divorce him.
Oh, so they were both married?
Yeah.
Okay.
Blandford got all gothic novel and gave Edith cyanide pills to take just in case something happened to him.
Oh my gosh.
And he also demanded that her husband still divorce her. I don't know what he thought on that one. So in this case, I actually feel for Bertie because, I mean, he did sleep with her, but he wasn't actually involved with her when all this started going on. Yeah. So, and then everyone's blaming him and saying, hey, you told Lord Aylesford that he could come with you, and if he hadn't been with you, then she wouldn't have run off with Lord Blandford. Yeah, so That's when the threats started. Bertie refused to be bullied, but then Alex was involved in the whole shindig. So Blanche